Now, Ukraine continues its counter-offensive against Russia. After reeling under Russian strikes for almost 7 months, Ukraine is fighting back to regain its territory. The war-torn country has now claimed that it has taken back 6,000 square kilometers of the area, which was captured by Moscow after the war began in the month of February.
Від перших чисел вересня і до сьогодні наші воїни вже звільнили понад 6 тисяч квадратних кілометрів території України на сході і на півдні. Рух наших військ продовжується.
Ukrainian forces claim that they've retaken about 500 square kilometers of the territory in the southern part of the country in the past 2 weeks. That includes at least 5 settlements in the Kherson region.
Але тим не менш ми можемо вже говорити сьогодні, що наші успіхи протягом останніх 2 тижнів досить переконливі. Ми просунулись на різних ділянках від 4 до кілька десятків кілометрів.
As Ukraine continues its counter-offensive, the country's President Volodymyr Zelensky has called on the West to speed up deliveries of weapons to consolidate control over territories seized back from Russia. Washington and its allies have provided Ukraine with billions of dollars in weapons that Kiev says have helped limit Russian gains. Backing Ukraine's counter-charge, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Monday that Ukrainian forces have made significant progress. He then called out Russia for using its forces indiscriminately against civilians and civilian infrastructure.
What they have done has been very methodically planned out. And of course, it's benefited from significant support from the United States and many other countries in terms of making sure that Ukraine has in its hands the equipment it needs to prosecute this counteroffensive.
Russia, on the other hand, continues to remain defiant. The Kremlin has said that Russia will achieve the goal of its special military operations in Ukraine and has also ruled out peace talks with Ukraine. The statement marks the first reaction from the Kremlin to a lightning Ukrainian counteroffensive. However, when asked about ordering a general mobilization in response to Ukraine's charge, Kremlin spokesperson referred to the question to the defense ministry. So far, Putin has not resorted to mobilizing Russia's reserves, which number around 2 million men with military service within the past 5 years. According to a report published late last month in February, Russians control over 27,000 square kilometers of Ukrainian land. In June, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia has occupied 20% of the country, which accounted for 70,000 kilometers of land. Now, for more on this, we're being joined by Nazmi Hazir, who is a political analyst. He's joining us from Moscow. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. Now, Ukraine has claimed to regain over... Yes. So Ukraine, my first question to you, Ukraine has claimed to have regained over 6,000 square kilometers of the territory. What is your take and what do you think is going to be the impact of this?
Yes, since almost 202 days have passed since the war started, conflict started, and for the first time Ukraine started to gain territories around the Kharkiv region. It's actually a turning point in the conflicts between Russia and Ukraine because in recent days Ukraine is more offensive and on the other hand Russia seems more defensive. On the other hand, according to argument of Russia, Russia said that Russia tactically withdraw from these regions and Russia is planning to move some troops to other regions in Ukraine territory, but we don't know whether it's true or not. In the following days, in the upcoming days, we will get how it will be goes. Right now, it is actually early to say something because especially Kherson region is very important, and if Ukraine will be able to gain Kherson region and control over Kherson region, it means that something is not going good for Russia.
Right.
So, please. So we will understand soon, I think, in the following weeks or following days even.
Right, absolutely, you're correct there. Russia remains defiant on this and in fact has said that it is retreating to regroup its resources and troops. Now, how effective do you think that is going to prove to be? Because they've also said that there is going to be no general mobilization as of now. So do you think we can expect some heightened offensive from the Russian side going forward?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, Russia must be more offensive, because after the Kharkiv region, after Ukraine gaining some territories in the Kharkiv region, Russia must change tactic, because everybody considers that it's not going well for Russia. And for another thing that Russia in 1 month ago increased, there was a decision taken by the Russian government in order to increase the troops in the Russian army. Right now there are almost 1 million people, staff, working in the Russian army, and Russia decided to increase the troops and people working in the army. So it's also an important decision. It means that Russia needs some troops. So I think maybe Russia is now more preparing for more comprehensive or bigger attack against Ukraine.
Right. Now, that being said, the Kremlin in its statement has in fact clearly stated that Russia will be successful in achieving the goal of its special military operations in Ukraine, and also ruled out any peace talks with Ukraine. So how do you see this going forward?
Actually, some days ago, Sergei Lavrov, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, delivered a statement, and there was some signals, according to statement of Sergei Lavrov, about peace talks. According to these signals, Russia is actually not very opposed to peace talks, and Lavrov also said that there could be some negotiations. We are not very close to negotiations. We are open to negotiations. On the other hand, almost Zelensky, Ukrainian President Zelensky, also delivered a comment, and he said that they are not very open to negotiations. And according to his statement, as far as we understand, Ukraine right now doesn't want to make negotiations with Russia. But on the other hand, Russia seems more eager to have peace talks with Ukraine.
All right.
But generally, right now, it is still not possible to have. It's not possible to have peace talks in the short run between Russia and Ukraine.
All right, you raise an interesting point there. Thank you so much, Mr. Nazmi Hazir. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast with your analysis. And for more on this, we're also right now being joined by Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Grant, who is a defense expert at Baltic Security Foundation. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, how do you assess the rapid gains made by Ukraine so far?
Well, it's interesting because I don't think anybody would have predicted this 10 days ago. But basically, the Russians moved too many of their troops down south to the Kherson area to reinforce Kherson, where they expected a counterattack to come, because all the politicians and military said that we're going to attack in Kherson. And they left the top of the country free. And the Ukrainians managed to actually put together quite a large force and punch through the front line to find that there was absolutely nothing behind it. And what happened was that the Russian soldiers started to flee. And when I say flee, I mean flee. It's stealing cars, getting bicycles and running away and just leaving their equipment. And if you actually look at the photographs on the internet of the area around Izium, which has been a Russian hotspot for the last 2-3 months, they left virtually all the equipment that they had in Izium and just left in lorries, in wheeled vehicles.
Right, you raise a very important point there. In fact, Russia, I was going to come to this, Russia claims to be regrouping its resources and troops. So do you think at this point there could be heightened chances of offenses from the Russian side now?
No, not at all, because I don't think the regrouping is complete nonsense. I mean, the troops are running away in the north, and they've just left completely right open, and many of them have just packed up and gone across the border, leaving everything, literally everything behind, including their rifles. So they've just been running away. In the south in Kherson, the troops are cut off there because the bridges over the river have been cut. So there's negotiations at the moment between some of these troops whether they will actually give in, because if they try and get back across the river, they're just going to get killed. In fact, if they get across the river, they're likely to get killed by their own side, by the Chechens that Putin has sent there to try and stiffen the resolve of the troops. The Russians have changed the commander in the Western District, and they put the commander of the Central District in charge. So maybe he will be able to pull some of these fleeing troops together. But if Ukraine starts punching south from their gains over the last week, then in my view, the Russian troops will simply start to run away again. Because I think most of them understand they're losing.
Right, and now just for more clarity here, you mentioned a very important point here that they might just get killed by their own troops or the Chechen leaders here. Why do you say that?
Well, because that's what the Chechens have been sent there to do. They've not been sent to fight. They've been sent to actually to act as like Putin's enforcers and to kill their own side, the Russian soldiers, if the Russian soldiers don't actually fight. I mean, this is like World War II, defense of Stalingrad sort of activity. And because the Russian soldiers are giving up, because they don't want to fight anymore, because they're not properly supplied with food, with weapons, with ammunition, with drones, everything. And so they know that they're liable to get killed, so they're trying to escape.
All right, so would you say that at this juncture in the war, Ukraine has the upper hand? So how do you see the war going forward, panning out?
Well, I think we'll know in the next couple of days whether Ukraine just sits on what it's gained, because it needs a technical pause while it brings forward basic logistics like fuel and food, because they've been moving so quickly, or whether they actually take a risk and punch south. And if they do punch south into Luhansk and Donetsk, then I think we could actually see the whole of the Russian side unravel very, very quickly. If they don't, it gives the Russians a chance to regroup and to actually to defend. At the moment, my inclination is that the Ukrainians will move quickly and try and go south.
All right. Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Grant, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.